another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name is David Austin.
I'm Londa Sherwood Austin. Welcome back.
I am pleased to be here with you today, Londa.
I'm very grateful.
I'm grateful too. Isn't that funny?
Foreshadowing.
Yeah, this episode of The Session with Londa and David is focusing on gratitude. Of course, this is a business program where we specialize in three things that are very interesting to us. They are restaurants, retail, and real estate.
Yep.
Okay, the reason we're focusing on gratitude in this edition is because it's a new season. Summer is here.
Just about.
It's unofficially here. We've made it through Memorial Day. And it's a time to look ahead.
Yeah.
And when looking ahead, it's often good to do it with a positive attitude.
Let's go.
And how better to spark a positive attitude than being grateful about what we have?
Yeah. When
we get up in the morning, we have a cup of coffee in our little sitting in our little sitting room area, sometimes out on the back patio, and we have a sales meeting. That's exactly what we do. And last night we were very specific about how we trained our brains when we went to bed. Tell us a little bit about that. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, we just laid in bed and talked about what we were grateful for.
I got to tell you, it's so nice to be able to do that.
And we both drifted off to sleep while talking about it.
Yeah. And it was a little discombobulating because we woke up in the middle of the night because I was snoring because I wasn't wearing my sleep machine mask.
Because we had both drifted off into happy, sleepy land.
Such a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's the deal. It's really easy to talk about having a positive mindset. It's easy to talk about it. For some people, it's hard to do.
Hello.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. I'm reading Anne Lamott's new book called Somehow, and it's kind of her reflections on love. And if you don't know Anne Lamott, you should. You should read one of her books. She's a writer who teaches and encourages writers.
Okay.
But she's also really just incredible. I think she's written 7 novels and more than 20 books total. And in this book, she's talking about being kind of a master of, how did she put it? A master of mortality.
Okay.
Something like that. Like her tendency is to kind of always look at the negative, or like she's got a lot of fear around dying. Kind of, if you're late, you're probably dead in a ditch, that kind of thing, right?
I gotcha.
So I relate to that.
Okay.
A lot, because I think very similarly. Like, it's hard for me to, it's not hard. I have to consistently practice gratitude and consistently practice seeing what is right and what is good in the world. Because my natural tendency is to, those neural pathways is to see all the danger.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And all the disaster and all the bad things that could happen or have happened or whatever. So this study of gratitude is very important to me.
Okay.
And has been a lifeline for me through most of my adult life. Now, for a long time, all of my gratitude was very faith-based in my life, right? Today, I would say it's not at all, really. But either way, the gratitude piece has carried forward and probably in many, many times in my life kept me from, making really bad decisions for my future.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think it's kept me going in times when I didn't want to keep going, if you can kind of read between the lines of what I'm trying to say. So, yeah.
That's interesting, and I'm so opposite of that. I like talking about the science of gratitude and kindness because it helps me understand kind of how I think already. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I can't picture it coming from the opposite perspective. Having to, I think to myself, man, I'm super, super happy most of the time. And I wonder why. You see what I'm saying?
Well, yeah.
And that's different than being kind of like a kicked puppy, sort of. You know what I mean? You're a little scared and you're looking for anything that could come at you.
That's exactly, yeah. That's actually a really good way to.
Bless you.
A really good way to describe me.
Yeah, that's sad.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm grateful that we get to have these conversations and you're kind of softening a little bit. And I wonder what that's attributable to.
I think over time, as I heal the wounded places in my life and get healthier in some of those places that have been ill, if you will, look at it that way. If you think about a kind of a festering wound, that sounds disgusting, but the truth is some of our emotional wounds are just like that. And, there are a lot of things that you can do to bandage that up and try to cover it up. But if you don't ever kind of dig in and clean it out and get to the, you got to get to the fresh stuff and get all of the healthy things in to you. And, if you, the wound is kind of a gross but pretty accurate word picture, right? Because you do have to, you got to change the dressing and you got to make sure the correct, maybe you're on antibiotics.
Sure.
And, and maybe that's therapy, emotionally speaking.
Yeah.
And, you've got to put the right kind of medication on the wound to keep it clean and let it heal. And maybe that's a gratitude journal. And so it's all those different ways of approaching life. And I think the more that I let my history heal and I'm willing to address it and look at it and deal with it, then the easier it is for me to make space for gratitude and joy and happiness and all those kind of things, because the space isn't taken up by these other things that have been so comfortable to me. And it's a very scary thing for people who, like me, who have a lot of trauma in their past, and you're kind of walking down this road. It's very scary because sometimes I think, well, if I'm not this person, then who am I?
Sure.
Because they get to be such familiar companions, right? Fear and whatever else that you're dealing with. They get to be such familiar companions in your life that you think, well, but this is what I know and this is what's comfortable. And if I let those things go, I'm not really sure what's out there.
I gotcha.
Yeah. And so, I think gratitude's been a core tenet.
Sure.
Of my healing journey, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, and necessary. And I say it's necessary because as we apply these conversations to our businesses, being a positive force of nature in a transaction, be it real estate, be it mortgage, even sales at the mall, retail sales. Yeah. Being positive makes you more attractive to customers.
It's what you expect is kind of what you get, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
So if you're somebody told me one time, if you're looking for the devil behind every door, you're sure to find him. Isn't that funny?
That is funny.
But it's kind of that concept of what you're looking for is what you're going to find. It has to do with the reticular activating system.
That's exactly right.
Which, you can program by doing daily affirmations. It's more like future focused.
Sure.
And so, if you're programming your reticular activating system by doing daily affirmations, and then you're programming your prefrontal cortex by exercising gratitude, I mean, you're kind of getting it coming and going, right? And so you're bound to create a happier life.
I think that's really interesting. And for people that don't know about the reticular activating system, we've talked about it here on the show a lot. The easiest example to remember is, do you remember when you bought your first automobile?
Mm-hmm.
When you bought your first automobile, I guarantee every time you went down the road, you saw somebody in one.
Right.
Every single time. And before,
Right.
You might not have even noticed
Right.
them.
Never noticed a red Jeep until I started shopping for a red Jeep, and then I saw red Jeeps everywhere.
That's exactly right.
That's the reticular activating system at work. It's your onboard hard drive.
It's cool.
Yeah, you program it with the things that you put in. This is why, if you have a group of friends that get together and sit around and complain, it's not going to be good for you.
Absolutely. There are so many tropes that you can throw at this idea, right?
Oh, yeah.
The people you hang out with are who you become.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ways to explain it. It's like if you are sitting in an office complaining a lot, you're going to hate your job and you're not going to be very productive. On the flip side, if you look forward to going to work and you look forward to seeing your coworkers, that group of people's probably dramatically more productive than their opposite counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And we all know you can pick up the energy of the people around you.
Absolutely.
And the energy of people who practice gratitude, who, do these things is so different than people who don't. The old Debbie Downer character,
right? Wah, wah.
Exactly. And so that, thank you. Yes. Compared to somebody who's genuinely positive, happy, upbeat, filled with gratitude. And I say genuinely because if you're trying to fake it till you make it,
right?
Boy, that only gets you so far.
Well, and people can see, right? Sometimes, like this morning, for instance, I'm having an allergic reaction to the seasonal stuff in the air, all the pollen and everything. Sometimes it's hard for me to sound happy when I feel this way, right?
Okay.
But I am happy, so I think it comes anyway, even though I don't feel awesome.
I gotcha.
Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
I still feel happy. Well, what if I felt bad and didn't have an underlying happiness, right? Then I'd be miserable and I'd have to stay home and be in bed.
Right.
No, thank you. You know what I mean? So gratitude is like the fast pass at an amusement park. Gratitude gets you right to the front of the line.
Right.
If you're grateful and you're thinking about positive things in your downtime, it's much easier to rebound if you're feeling bad. Mm-hmm. Much easier to rebound if you're feeling stressed out or unhappy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say also people who, the tendency is to say, oh, well, that's easy for you.
Right.
Well, it's easy for you. You don't have my life.
Right.
Well, no, but I have my life and you wouldn't trade me. I guarantee you wouldn't trade me. You wouldn't trade somebody else if you could really see their life and really see the things that they face every day. And we look at social media or we look at what we show people the highlight reel and we tend to keep, the ugly behind the scenes. And not that I have a lot of that, but I mean, I'm genuinely pretty happy, joyful, and don't have a ton of stress right now. Right this very minute.
Today now.
Right. The nature of life, however, is stressful.
Yeah.
And so, this is one way, exercising gratitude is one way that you can manage your stress,
Yeah.
And so, easy for you. No, it's not easy for me. I think I was pretty clear about that at the beginning.
Right. Yeah.
It's not. And so, but the science is clear that it produces happiness, can reduce depression, increases resiliency. I mean, who can't use a little bit more grit?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you wouldn't think that gratitude is the way to get there, but the science shows us that it is. You want to lower your blood pressure, have higher self-esteem, sleep better, create more happiness. Gratitude.
I read an article on my phone this weekend about anger being bad for your health.
Tell me about that.
Well, it talked about how if you are angry a lot, it can and does mess up your cortisol levels, more stress hormone in your body. It's bad for your heart. gastrointestinal stuff. All kinds of bad things happen when you're carrying around anger.
Right.
So anger and resentment are almost as bad as cancer.
Well,
they're a kind of cancer, right?
They actually are, and this is going to sound terrible to some of you, but I remember when my mom's mom, my grandmother, was diagnosed with cancer, and my mom and I kind of looking at each other thinking, no surprise.
Oh, because she was a bitter person?
Super negative, bitter, angry.
Is she the one that got into the auto accident and it scarred her face?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. My grandma was drop dead gorgeous and was very very well put together.
Okay.
Very, like, she didn't leave the house without being
to
the nines.
Okay.
You know, and very much leaned on that.
Okay.
Right, leaned into
Sure.
it, and was in a horrible car accident in the late 60s, I think, that scarred, it tore up her face, it cut some nerves in her face, disfigured her just slightly. Wasn't a big change. It wasn't. But it was enough that it absolutely destroyed her.
Wow, that's terrible.
And my mom, because I wasn't even born when the accident happened, but my mom said from that moment forward, she just became more and more negative, more and more bitter.
That's horrible.
And more angry.
Yeah.
You know?
No.
So
I can't imagine something like that happening in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I sound like kind of a doofus in that I'm always happy all the time, like a happy puppy, but it's kind of true. And when bad things happen, I always look for the good from it.
So some of this is
that's a survival skill, by the way.
I'm just going into
kid.
that. Some of it is nature versus nurture, right? There's your natural tendency, I think, is to be that way, and also it's a survival skill that you developed as a kid.
Having to move a lot.
Yeah.
And I had to teach myself, this is an opportunity for new fun stuff.
Right.
And that is how I saw life. And it's kind of stuck with me.
Yeah,
right?
And it's the same way that I look for the danger in every situation that I'm in, because you know, I learned at a very young, a little emotional, but I learned at a very, very young age that, like, nobody is here to protect me. Nobody will keep me safe but me. And so I have to see the danger coming always. And so letting go of that is, you know, not easy. It would be like you letting go of your positivity.
Right.
Like, it's just there. So you have to kind of supplement, if you will. You know, I'm low in vitamin D, so I take a vitamin D supplement every day. You know,
you sure do.
And so, you know, it's kind of the same idea. Like, I'm a little low on gratitude, so I have my gratitude journal, or I make myself focus on the positive. You know, I remember driving down the road one time with my kids, and you know, in our great big 15-passenger van. We're driving down the road, and the kids are kind of making fun of this guy that's walking on the side of the street. And I remember this moment so clearly, saying to them, you know, it's really easy to focus on everything that's wrong with people and the world and everything going on around you. But the greater skill is to find what's good in the world, find what's positive, find what's happy. Look at that man on the side of the street and make your brain find something good to say and think.
I like that.
And that was part of me trying to focus on what is good in the world rather than everything that's going wrong, which is, you know,
you're huge. Your go-to.
You know, it's my reflex.
Yeah.
We have reflexes, and there's not much you can do. In fact, speaking of reflexes, I was with our grandson Eli the other day, and I was sitting on the couch and had my leg propped up across my knee, right, like this. And he came up and was kind of grabbed hold of my leg, and I could see in his little mind, he opened his mouth and he was coming toward my leg
to bite it.
You know, and kids He wasn't being malicious at all. Kids do this because they discover the world around them by experiences, and your mouth is one of your senses.
Sure.
So your mouth is how you discover part of the world, right?
Sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I said, Eli, do not bite me, because if you bite me, I'm going to hit you so hard. And I don't want to. I won't mean to, but it's going to be a reflex.
Right.
Right. And I don't want to do that, but I'll, it's a defense mechanism, right? And it'll be a reflex. And so do not bite me. And he backed right off and but it's true. And there's some things like that. Don't back me into a corner unless you want me coming out swinging.
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I think this is a very good topic for us to discuss, because you open up more when we talk about stuff like this, because it's important to you. It's dear to you.
It also relates to what we do for work.
Right.
Your shit is going to come out in your work.
Yes.
And so if you're not getting the results that you want in your career, in your work that you do, and ours happens to be sales,
right,
then do something different.
I like that.
Right? You're not stuck. I say this all the time. You're not stuck. There's nothing you can do about your circumstances. There is something you can do. And sometimes it's as simple as, like this video said, smile more.
Right. Yeah. It takes far more muscles in your face to frown than it does to smile.
That's what they say.
So
I don't know.
Let's smile. Huh? Your body wants to do that. It feels good. It's just like when I was a new radio guy. One of my buddies at the radio station in Lafayette, Louisiana, a guy named Tom Mitchell, told me, whenever you're talking and like doing a phone number, dial it with your finger like it's a press button phone. Dial the number while you're saying it, and you'll say it in the right tempo for someone to hear it and remember it forever. You know, like if you need to reach David Austin at Sherwood Austin Homes, all you have to do is dial 509-438-3125. Let me say that again. 509-438-3125.
Right.
That is unmistakable.
Right.
You now know my phone number.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you do the same thing with a smile when you're taught to talk, when you're talking and learning to talk on the air. Talk emotionally. Smile and people will hear it, and it'll come through in your voice.
This is why in sales, if you work on the phone, oftentimes trainers will tell people to put a mirror in front of them on their desk or whatever when you're working the phone, because when you smile, people can hear it in your voice.
That's right.
Another trick is to stand up when you're making your phone calls, because you've got a little bit more energy to your
voice. That. Okay, no.
Right? And so these are some tricks that I've taught people that, one of the challenges that I find recently in our industry, or in the world, I guess, is because of texting, you have to learn how to try to translate those skills to text message.
Sure.
But here's the problem. So much of sales and conversation of sales is persuasion. It just is. And emotion, I'll put it that way. So much of sales is emotion, because people buy on emotions. They sell on emotions.
Sure.
It's just the way it is.
Yes.
And text does not convey emotions. It's more difficult to convey emotions through text.
Sure.
Thank God for emojis.
Right.
Right? Because you can kind of convey a little bit of the emotion, but it's harder. And I would say that, we have an advantage coming from old school sales.
Right.
If we also adopt new school. You know what I mean?
And we talk about that, old school versus new school, old school and new school in
online and offline.
Yep.
You got to be able to speak persuasively through a direct message and on the phone. And I would say that's a huge advantage to somebody who has really never talked a lot on the phone.
Yeah. I would like to talk more about this, but you have another meeting coming up, so I need to kind of wrap this up for you.
Oh.
And we talked about some pretty important stuff in this episode. You got a little emotional about halfway in.
Yeah.
And I thought it was beautiful. I am so grateful that you chose me to be your husband, and I love navigating this with you.
Same.
And that's awesome for me.
Yeah, same. And we didn't get into our favorite topics of restaurants, real estate, and retail sales, really, but kind of we did.
We sort of did because
you can pick it up.
Absolutely. If you have a positive outlook and you look for the good things, you're going to be more successful in whatever it is
And we do have a restaurant review no one asked to hear next week.
Okay, there you go. More gratitude, more interest, and we'll be gratitude journaling for the rest of the week. This is The Session with Londa and David.